The White House says it's updated its evacuation process from Afghanistan. In a statement released on Sunday evening, it says a series of steps have now been adopted for the safe departure of U.S. and allied personnel via civilian and military flights. The U.S. has expanded its security presence to nearly 6,000 troops and aims to transfer thousands of Americans out of the country. The statement also says Afghans who have cleared security screening are allowed to come to the U.S. In Washington, D.C., many are taking to the streets in protest against the Taliban. Toby Muse has the reaction from Washington.
Dozens of people from Afghanistan have come here to the White House to hold this impromptu protest. They carry signs saying things like "Save Afghanistan" and criticizing and rejecting the Taliban. Here, as in the rest of Washington, D.C., there is a sense of shock at the sudden collapse of the Afghanistan government and its military, especially since the U.S. spent 20 years building it up. Still, the White House is standing by its decision. Even a week ago, U.S. intelligence officials said the worst-case scenario was that Kabul would fall in a month's time. It may not even be 1 week. The mood here has been to blame the Afghan army for being unable or unwilling to fight for their own country, a position President Joe Biden made explicit in a statement Saturday. The White House blamed negotiations last year between the former Trump administration and the Taliban for locking them into dates to leave.
We inherited a deadline negotiated by the previous administration. That deadline was May 1st. And the idea that we could have maintained the status quo beyond May 1st if the president had decided to stay, I think is a fiction.
The U.S. continues to warn that any attack by the Taliban that puts at risk U.S. soldiers or personnel will be swiftly reacted to. But criticism here is growing, with Republican Senator Ben Sasse calling this an unmitigated disaster. Questions are already being aired over how this has been handled, the sheer speed of the collapse, and how did the US not have a plan B for such an outcome? It should be remembered that a majority of the US population wanted to see the military leave Afghanistan. What comes next for the US and Afghanistan? A US envoy earlier this week urged the Taliban not to take power through force, as it would not be recognized by many in the international community. The British Prime Minister urged countries not to recognize the Taliban as the government of Afghanistan unilaterally. He urged countries to wait and see, but understood a new government was likely to be formed.
We don't want anybody bilaterally recognizing the Taliban. We want a united position amongst all the like-minded, as far as we can get one, so that we do whatever we can to prevent Afghanistan lapsing back into being a breeding ground for terror.
Russia said it is ready to cooperate with the interim government and saw no threat to its embassy, so saw no need to evacuate. Turkey said it would continue to keep its embassy open in Kabul, but would help those citizens who wanted to leave. Germany closed its embassy in Kabul and continued to try to evacuate its citizens. Toby Muse reporting for CGTN, Washington, D.C.